I'm Ian Ginn, and today we're at the Connected Britain taking place in Excel in London, bringing together 8,000 industry experts, innovators and policymakers from both the public and private sector concerning all aspects of connectivity to shape the future of the UK digital market. My guest today is Elizabeth Anderson, who is the CEO of the Digital Poverty Alliance, who was speaking at the event about closing the gap, tackling the digital divide. On Digital Talk, we spotlight entrepreneurs, leaders, and innovators using digital tech and telecoms to drive global impact in a changing world. Uncovering the unexpected, spotlighting hidden gems, and sharing inspiring stories that shine a light on the most transformative corners of our industry. Before we dive in, a quick announcement. Digital Talk is also a media partner at this year's Network X 2025, taking place between the 14th and 16th of October in Paris, the global platform for telecoms, cloud, and edge innovation. We'll be sharing expert insights and exclusive content from the event. Follow the podcast and stay ahead of the curve. Welcome to Digital Talk, Elizabeth.
Thank you, Ian. Great to be here.
Could you kindly just introduce yourself and the organisation?
Definitely. So, as you said, Elizabeth Anderson, I'm the Chief Executive here at the Digital Poverty Alliance, and we are a charity working UK-wide to close that digital divide and help the millions of people who are currently experiencing digital exclusion.
Can you quantify that a bit for how big a problem? Because I think people would think we're sort of first world country, and is there such a divide? That would be helpful, I think, for our audience to understand what the challenge is.
Definitely. So we did some work with Deloitte, and that found that the scale of digital poverty across the UK is around 19 million people. However, around 4 million are experiencing digital exclusion because they can't access a device or connectivity. So this is an affordability issue. And for the remainder, it's a skills issue. So a lack of really basic skills, being able to set up an email, being able to change a password, being able to use a well-known search engine. And what that tends to translate into is around 1 in 7 adults and 1 in 5 children who are digitally excluded in some way. Maybe they don't have the skills, maybe they don't have the kit, but 1 in 17 adults is totally excluded. So they don't have a piece of kit, they don't have an internet connection at home, and they wouldn't know how to use it if you bought them one today. So it's a big issue, and it affects young people, older people, people trying to access the employment market, all different ages and demographics.
Wow, that is quite something. And how does one sort of identify these? Because I presume it's not obvious on first looks, and people don't give it away per se. Because in a way, they're hidden by definition. They're hidden from it. Is there a way of sort of what is there a policy or a way of engaging with that part of group?
So absolutely, people are often reticent to explain that they are digitally excluded, and it tends to come to light when people are in a crisis situation or they really need to do something now, like they need to access healthcare now, or they need to apply for welfare support such as universal credit now, and that tends to be when it comes to the fore. There are certain predisposing factors, so certainly age is a big part of it. Both older people but also school leavers are the second most likely to be impacted by digital poverty after older people. Women are more likely to be impacted, but the biggest, of course, is socioeconomics. So people who are unemployed or people who are on low incomes or in lower paid roles. For people who are unemployed, around 1 in 2 people are digitally excluded. So as you layer those different factors together, you can start to really determine that this person is very much at risk of digital exclusion.
Today's episode is sponsored by IFG Consulting Europe, who help operators to tap into technologies to accelerate digitization of the network, drive revenues, and reduce costs. by championing promising software providers. Go to ifgconsultingeurope.com to find out more.
So can you maybe give us some idea of the sort of work you're undertaking and success stories related to the work?
Absolutely. So in terms of delivery, which is getting laptops, getting tablets, even getting smartphones out to families who need them, one of our big successes is our Tech for Families programme, which receives donations from the public in stores of Currys, the well-known electronics retailer. We use those to buy laptops, and we've got thousands of families online in the last 3 years for the first time. Most of these people have never had a laptop before. Now they do. We provide connectivity support, and we provide them with skills, resources, so that they can train up. And we had this evaluated by the University of Sussex, and it showed, even, for example, in terms of children accessing education, around 86% of parents said their child was just now more engaged in learning because they had a laptop and they weren't struggling to complete their homework at the end of the day.
Just for audience, how can someone who was in that digital poverty trap access the service? So how would they, I guess, know about the charity? And then if people want to contribute to the charity, maybe those are two options that you could share with the audience, so how they can contribute and on the user side.
Definitely. So if a family is experiencing digital exclusion, by the very nature of that exclusion, they're not going to be able to jump on Google and find out about the options available to them. So we do a lot of work with local authorities, with local community groups, other charities, places of worship, schools, to get the word out that this is something that they can access in their community. They can then text in to get an application form, or they can pick up a paper form, or if they do have some online access, they can indeed apply online. If there's people out there who want to get involved and feel like they could support the DPA in its mission and to help more families, more young people be able to get online for the first time, they can visit digitalpovertyalliance.org, and from there, companies can find out how they can support our work. But also, if you've got old laptops lying around, old monitors, old dongles, all sorts of bits of kit that actually fundamentally still works, but maybe you're just not using anymore, you're hanging on to it because it might be useful one day and you don't quite know what to do with it. Let's get it out of cupboards. Let's get it out of basements. Let's get it out of wherever it might be being stored, because we can get all of this refreshed. We can get safe and secure operating systems on there, and we can get it back out to people, and it will transform their lives.
So you're doing two things there, one helping those people, but also recycling part of the circular economy. And how would people deposit it? You just say Currys is the network that are supporting that, or are there other deposit areas where people can deposit these goods?
So there's different ways of depositing stuff. Currys is a great way of making a financial donation. But if you have kit, you can get in touch with us and we will let you know locally where you might be able to take that in. Or if it's a larger firm with a bigger collection of kit, actually, we can arrange for somebody to come, no cost to you guys, and take that away and get that sorted out. And then we'll let you have a report of what we did with that. It's all safely and secure wiped, so you get certification on that. And we'll let you know the kind of people that it ended up with, and tell you some nice stories of actually how it's helped them in their day-to-day.
Well, I'd like to think our audience are up for that, so we're all behind that. So just coming back to the Connected Britain event itself, so how did you find it? And obviously you went there to do a panel discussion, I guess, was it? But what were your thoughts about the event?
It was absolutely fantastic, Connected Britain this year. There was such a buzz around it, and actually there was such a buzz around digital inclusion as well. And it was great to see so many local authorities and so many businesses who actually really want to engage on this and really want to make change. Not even just short-term change, but actually thinking about long-term strategies, long-term accountability, and how we create a world where digital inclusion is embedded into the technology strategies that are being created for the future. So that was fantastic to see.
And I think your point is also these authorities who are all trying to go digital first themselves, guess what? If their audience and the users aren't digital, that causes itself a potential problem. Did anything catch your eye at the event, or anything worth sharing with the audience?
I think one of the things that we were really excited to hear about was the work that Virgin Media O2 are doing around connecting local people within local communities, both in terms of that connectivity, so broadband, and really thinking about how to reach those who are on the lowest incomes at the moment, but also thinking about how that then links up more widely. And their Chief Sustainability Officer was talking on the panel that I was on around the work that they're doing on local device banks. So that was a very practical set of actions, and great to see a business that big really actually thinking about their responsibilities as well.
Well, I guess there's also for them an advantage is if they can upskill their users, so they can maybe then earn the income, which allows them to pay normal subscriptions. So I think there's a win-win there for them as well as society as a whole. So that's a great one. And other than the great work that you're doing, is there other pressing issues in the world that concern you that you'd like to see addressed?
I think more widely, if we think about ESG, if we think about environmental and social and indeed the good governance of organisations, being able to tie together, and I realise it's a hot topic at the moment, but how inclusivity can best be reflected by business across those ESG goals. That is incredibly important, and we see actually the links around technology as falling across all of these, because there's digital inclusion at the one side, there's the circular economy and actually the use of materials, including precious metals, but the carbon emissions of creating a laptop versus the savings of being able to refurbish one. And of course, there's then the ethics around how data is used, how AI is used, and what that means for individuals who may not understand how their data is being used or algorithmic transparency. So there's a lot there that sits just within the technology envelope. And it's interesting to see some companies really grasping hold of that. But on the other hand, there's a big opportunity for other companies to start to see their place in the world and take some responsibility on this as well.
So we were media partners with the AI for Good Summit in Geneva this year, run by the ITU. And one of the flagship comments was that the Generation Alpha, they're called now, are the generation born into AI, if you like, in the real world. So have you got any advice for anyone who, budding entrepreneurs or anyone who wants to, from a younger age perspective, get involved with AI and AI for good?
I think absolutely remembering that AI should be used for good is fundamentally the first point, and that ethical perspective around it. I think there is so much that AI could do to help us understand the risks that are faced by different neighbourhoods across the UK, across the world, in terms of how they are firing through their education, how they're accessing work, and how they're accessing healthcare particularly. So I think if there's somebody who's out there going, I'm an AI whiz, I could build a model. If you could build a model that actually can help predict those risk factors, that would be so helpful for people and charities and those who want to provide support.
You remind me of one of the recent podcasts we did where someone was using AI in the Amazon to also give the community information about people extracting wood illegally, which they didn't have the data about. So that's quite a good one. And they're one to listen if you want to listen to our backlog of podcasts. The other opportunity we want to give you, given that we're a positive podcast overall, is a shout out for someone or a colleague or an organisation that you think is doing good. You already mentioned a few, which is great, but I'm sure you've got some others up your sleeve.
Absolutely. So I'd love to give a shout out actually, because it's highly topical, to SQR, who are a digital identity company. There's a lot of talk this week around digital ID. And Shelley, who's the founder of SQR, is looking at how digital poverty and identity poverty actually overlap. So it's a really fascinating piece of work, and I'd encourage people to go and look into what it means if you can't prove that you are who you say you are.
Well, I think that our Prime Minister has suddenly caught on to that idea, I think, in the last few days. For those internationally, it's quite an interesting thing. Given that the UK is an island, we don't actually have a central identification system. So lots of countries in the world, certainly on the continent of Europe, it's quite normal for people to have an ID card. But in the UK, there is no obligation to have one, unless you're traveling abroad, in which case you can have a passport. So there's been discussions over a long, long time, and now we've reached the point, well, trying again, the government is considering to bring in ID cards, which has several purposes. And coming back to some of the things you're just saying about if you can create an ID card, access to healthcare, access to services, but also the community knowing you exist. So there's also payments from the government back to that community to say this person is registered here, therefore we need this infrastructure. So it certainly has its value as well. Elizabeth, you are now part of the Digital Tell community. Thank you for joining the podcast. Continue the great work. And any listeners out there with kit in their drawers and maybe the extra, we used to call it 10 bob, but I guess, is it pounds? Extra £10 that they'd like to give to a worthy charity for Christmas as well. I presume you've got a Christmas campaign as well. And if not, a good idea to have one. But thank you for joining the podcast.
Thanks so much, Ian.
If you've enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to rate us and subscribe, and feel free to follow us on LinkedIn. And if you have comments or ideas for future episodes, please send us an email. Thanks for being part of the Digital Talk community and for listening. Stay tuned.